So we're here at Streaming Media East in New York, and one of the, obviously a lot of content delivery providers here. I was hoping maybe you can tell us a little bit about Level 3's content delivery offering and how it's progressing.
Sure. So we actually have two parts to our offering. One is the CDN, which we've probably made a lot of noise about in the marketplace, and I'll talk a bit about how we've developed that over the last 12 months or so. The other piece is a service called Vyvx, which is a video backhaul network. It's very extensively deployed within the broadcast industry in the United States, and we're just moving into Europe with that. And really that allows us to combine CDN, video backhaul, encoding, and really offer complete packages for people that want to move content between two broadcast facilities, as well as stream that same content over the internet. So that's how we're evolving and how we're putting a great deal of emphasis on the development of those products. In the CDN in particular, though, over the last 12 months we've done a couple of things. We've completely revamped the reporting and analytics, built it again from scratch. It's one of those age-old things that the industry says that the CDN providers don't have a good reporting and analytics platform. We now think we have the best, and we've had some customers who have been able to compare it with competitors saying that in the last couple of months, which is nice to hear. And the thing that we're right in the middle of now is a massive increase in the capacity of the CDN, simply because of the demand that's out there. The video growth is continued. I think people are accelerating that. We're being successful with customers, so we're really putting a lot of effort into building out that network.
Let's talk a little bit about that sort of explosion of data. How or is it influencing, how Level 3 approaches, how it's moving data around its network, the sort of geography of things? What are the kind of challenges that are being created for you on the provider end from just the explosion of data and video, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's why we entered the CDN market in the first place. But yes, it imposes challenges, right? We have to think about where you put those clusters, how we interconnect with other networks, how much capacity to build out. And one of the challenges actually is how much capacity for each of the different protocols, particularly in the streaming environment. So there's Flash and Windows Media and Apple,
right.
And dealing with those and the pushes and takes as those change within the consumer or within the content market space is a challenge as well.
And how has the wireless and the sort of explosion of mobile devices affected that?
So mobile has affected it. It's still, frankly, if you look at the total amount of video traffic, it's still a very, very tiny share. We're delivering content to things like iPads and iPhones, and that's important for our customers, but in terms of the total traffic share, it's still very small.
So let's talk a little bit about Level 3's infrastructure. Obviously, been in business building data centers and network for a long time.
Yeah.
Give us an overview of Level 3's infrastructure and what sort of capabilities that gives you.
So Level 3's network is huge. It's one of the biggest and interconnected on the planet. Essentially, we started 10 to 15 years ago by digging the trenches in the ground, putting conduit in, pulling our own fibre both in North America and in Europe. Over the last 5+ years we've continued to do that in Europe by leasing fibre from other people and lighting it. But we own that physical infrastructure. We have about 300 data centres connected to that network, which we also own and house other people's plus our own equipment. And then on that network we build the layer of services, wavelengths, private lines, voice, VPN, and of course IP and CDN on the top.
And in terms of the overall data center presence, how big in terms of square footage, or how
I don't know the actual numbers, but I think we're the biggest single player in the industry, not well known as a co-location or data center provider in terms of a brand name, like in comparison with an Equinix, but I think we have more space than anybody else.
Now, owning the network, does that give you, advantages in terms of how you can approach the CDN business?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's one of the reasons we entered the space. We think there are two synergies in relation to ownership of that, of one of the most, if not the most, interconnected IP network plus the CDN. And those are cost. We control our costs. We have more levers to pull in terms of that balance between trade-off between a bandwidth cost and storage and compute power. But also the quality of what we can deliver. I don't think it's well understood yet, but having control over the entire delivery network, one QoS managed network, is a big advantage for us from a quality, and we see that day after day in our head-to-head tests that customers do when they're testing CDNs. We see the results, and it's good.
One of the topics that's being discussed today is sort of some of the changes involving television and the shift in terms of, you know, people looking at TV shows through the internet rather than on the TV. Tell us about you know, how is that impacting the business, and where does Vyvx fit with all of that?
So, I mean, that's a positive driver for the CDN for sure. I've got an iPad here, and I've been watching shows on that, and it's, you know, it's fantastic, and it just opens up your ability to consume TV in wherever you want, whenever you want, which is that mantra that people have been pushing for a long time. It's kind of coming true. In terms of Vyvx, we're interconnected with the broadcast industry. We have probably 2,500 locations, from sports venues to local TV stations to the broadcast facilities, on our video network, connected to encoders, connected to the CDN. It's the best source of certainly live and VOD content out there, and that real end-to-end capability that we have, nobody else has that, and that's a real differentiator in that segment of the market.
Okay, well listen, thanks for taking a few minutes to talk to us about Level 3.
You're very welcome.